as I was saying before in the previous tape, you may have to make an assessment. There's nothing wrong with having someone more skilled and more capable, or just maybe more objective than you, to offer their opinion to sort of give you an evaluation of where you are. But you don't want to stop your journey, or you don't want to allow the ticking noise to make the journey now become something that's a source of frustration and contention and turmoil and angst and anxiety. You don't want to get back in the car and all of a sudden everybody in the car is focused on and fixating on the noise and the ticking noise. Nobody's singing, nobody's listening to any music, nobody's seeing the landscape. All that's going on in the car is a quiet, solemn attention to this nebulous noise, which no one knows the source of. And then that noise, that fixation on that noise, actually begins to erode and erase and eradicate and diminish the quality of your journey. And I've said this before, and this is so true and so huge, and just listen to this. If there is not joy in the journey, you will end up jaded. I mean, what good is spending our life and our commitments and our energies making the journey towards greatness in every step of the way is turmoil, and our stomach is in a knot, and every little thing seems to be major, and we don't understand how to handle those unforeseen things that happen to everybody. And so we travel in a state of constant panic, like we're going to run out of gas, or we don't have enough air in the tire, or something like that. You've got to be willing to stop. Evaluate your options. Take the best option that will allow you to maintain your optimism. See, optimism is not just blind positive thinking. It is an honest assessment using all the skills and resources and abilities that you have at your disposal at your present state. You're not at home, you're not in the garage somewhere, you're not at a repair shop, so you don't have all that diagnostic equipment that will help you to make a more accurate and more scientific judgment. But you can make the kind of judgment that will allow you to travel and continue your journey without being jaded, without being hard, harsh, and hostile toward those circumstances that happen to every dreamer as he or she makes their ascent towards greatness. So I want to encourage you. Focus on the thing that you can change. This is how great people do it. Great people have this incredible willingness. I did not say ability. They have an incredible willingness to use their environmental distractions to sustain them as they make their trek toward their destination. And you and I have got to do the same thing. Now, this distraction, as I said before, is not based on procrastination or avoidance or a sense of low power to say that I can't accomplish this. No, this distraction, this diversion is saying, you know what, today, in this moment, I'm going to cut the radio on a little bit louder so I don't hear the noise. Because if hearing the noise is going to affect my ability to travel in peace, then I need to hear something differently. If you already decided you're not going to call a tow truck, you're not going to call a mechanic then, and you're not going to sit there, right? You've got to keep moving. And that's how it is in your journey towards greatness. It's about motion, mobility, and mobilizing yourself toward that goal that you say that you have committed yourself to. And if you do that, you will sustain your confidence. You'll sustain your energy. And one thing you'll learn about is you make your journey towards greatness. You have to slow down, as I'm doing now in my speech, and ask yourself, because every dreamer at certain points in the journey has to reassess and recertify their commitment to what they say they want. And see, problems are often an opportunity to be recertified. Because when you get recertified, there's a process that you have to go through. There are certain materials that you have to present and evidence that you have to show to say that you meet the qualifications or the stipulations that greatness demands. And most people will tell you, if you talk to most people who used to be dreamers, who used to pursue greatness, they'll tell you very masterfully and very convincingly that they did everything that they could. And the reason that they do that is they want you to feel like they were justified in quitting. And as I always say, I cannot tell another individual if he or she has the right to quit. I can only use their story, use their struggles as an outline and as a guideline to determine what I'm going to do when I face my own obstacle that says, Joel, don't recertify. I mean, you've tried. And that voice tells me that I can walk away with a clear conscience because I gave it the best that I could do. Well, see, for people who are committed to greatness, that's not good enough. See, this is not about accepting evaluations in the interim that allow us to have an out from our pursuits. This is not about accepting an evaluation in the interim that gives me an out from my pursuit. If I'm committed to greatness, if you're committed to greatness, and yes, you faced a problem, but one thing that you've got to do, as I said before, there is no greatness without patience. You have got to give yourself time to work through, work around that problem. And guess what? Here's a subtle thing that great people know. Some problems can't be solved. They're just dismissed. Think about this. Have you ever had a problem and you worked on this problem for months or weeks or maybe even a year or two and you seem to have no resolution? Well, first of all, let me say this. Most people are not willing to work on the same problem for a year. After a month or so, they walk away. Go read Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. He talks about the attitude of problem solving that the Asian culture has versus the American culture. They said that American students will work on a problem about 5 minutes. And if they see no resolution in sight, they start playing and get distracted, and then they get up and leave the library and go have a drink or something. But an Asian student will stay there about 15 to 20 minutes longer. And that 15 to 20 minutes longer over time is the difference between greatness and average, mediocrity and extraordinary. And so certain times you have to stay with the problem longer, but then after a while you've been on the problem for a year or 6 months and you can't solve it. Guess what? Have you ever had a greater problem come along and all of a sudden that problem took all your attention? And the ironic thing is, you were able to solve that problem, and when you went back to the other problem, you found that problem had dismissed itself or solved itself. Well, that is the fruit and the value of patience. Patience is the ability, let me just scratch that. I don't want to use that word ability except for where it really relates. Patience is the willingness to wait on your own greatness. I believe that most people, because of how our culture is so technology based, most people are too impatient to wait on their own greatness. They allow themselves to be indicted and discouraged by the success of all these technology millionaires, these 18-year-olds, these 20-somethings that invent these apps and these technologies and these social media platforms. And those of us who don't have that social media and technology skill, we're working in a dimension that's a little bit slower and not as popular. And so when we see somebody like that pop up, then we immediately feel disempowered because we think, man, they're 22 and I'm 52 and I still haven't gotten there. And we allow their success to seduce us in the wrong way from sustaining our pursuit of our dreams. And we lose our energy. We lose our enthusiasm. We lose our confidence. We begin to have our coordinates confounded. We can't tell north from south, east from west, up from down. And before you know it, we settle for something that we secretly hate and we never intended. And it's all because we did not exercise the patience and the prudence to let the problem dismiss itself. You're not going to have all the answers. I mean, you can talk to everybody in the world, you can Google, but sometimes you're going to face something in life that you don't have the ability to solve rationally. And it's what you do in that moment, in that meantime, in that interim, is that will determine the quality of your life. And if you begin to assess yourself in a way that's deficient, well, I should be able to do this, and why can't I? And something must be wrong with me. You begin to engage in all that negative dialogue, then what you're doing is you're diluting and diminishing your confidence. You're killing your confidence. See, everything that human beings do involves language. I like the way Cicero said it. The great Roman statesman said, everything done with intelligence is done with speech. I translate that to say this: everything that human beings do involves language. You want to change your language? You want to change your life? Change your language. I just don't mean the words that you speak. I don't mean the syllables and the sounds and the synonyms or the sentences. I mean, when I say change your language, I'm talking about changing your logic. Changing the equations and the conclusions that you make based upon your evaluation of a circumstance that really is only a meantime. It's simply an interim that you see as an end, and then you make a conclusive and a comprehensive evaluation that causes you to have some negative internal dialogue between you, yourself, and your dream. And rather than being willing, not able, rather than being willing to adjourn court, you allow yourself to issue a negative verdict that condemns your dream to the death penalty or solitary confinement or life without parole. But great people, when they reach that kind of impasse in their pursuit of greatness, rather than allow the judge of the self inside of them to issue an unjust verdict, they adjourn court and they reconvene tomorrow. Because they know that during that time of that recess, they will be renewed and revived and refreshed. And they'll be able to reframe their perspective, because they know that the way that they're seeing the problem is the problem. Doesn't mean that the problem isn't real, it isn't prevalent and pervasive. But if you see the problem the wrong way, then, and you have that kind of outlook, you can't change your outcome. And the way you change your outcome is you have to get insight. And the way you get insight is you talk to other people. Why is that? Talk to people outside of your field. As a writer, when I'm working on a book and I'm working on something that, is fairly new to me, I don't talk to other writers. I don't even go and talk to an expert in the field about that topic. I may do that at the end of the project when I'm about to finish, but when I'm doing the research, I talk to ordinary people, lay people outside of my field, because what they give me is an unfiltered perspective about what I'm working on. And here's the rub. Sometimes what they say has no real world value to what I'm doing. And if I'm not prudent, I will say that was a waste of time. But if I have the perspective of greatness, I understand that that person gave me an opportunity to bounce my ideas off of them. And though what they said did not help me, it allowed me to take some of the sting and the steam off of the problem that was beginning to perplex me and annoy me and vex me, and begin to leave me feeling like I didn't have the ability to overcome this adversity or this opposition in my life. And you have got to do the same thing. Sometimes a great way to work on your vision is to go to a movie. Now, what do you do when you go to a movie? It's not about the movie. It's about the mood. See, success and greatness is acquired and sustained because we have the ability to manage our moods. See, people that start, are emotionally unstable, and I don't mean in a way that has to do with some kind of medical diagnosis, but I mean because their inability and their unwillingness to be patient and suspend their judgment, they are constantly reacting to visible, tangible stimuli. And what's happening is they are allowing sight, and emphasis on sight, to replace their vision. See, sight has to do with what I see. Vision is related to what I believe. And if I believe in my heart that before I began, the place that I want to reach does exist, the thing that I want to accomplish is possible, then what happens is when I reach these places in my life where I don't know what to do, I have this intuitive awareness that, hey, wait a minute, Joel, stop. Go for a walk. Go for a run. Go ride your bike. Go to the park and watch people. And my rational mind says, well, that has nothing to do with your dream. You've got to get this thing done. Well, that's true. But I also know from experience that sometimes the best way to solve a problem is to let it dismiss itself. I say it this way: real problems destroy imaginary ones. A lot of times the thing that we're working on is really not a problem. It becomes a problem because we find that when we meet it, we don't have an initial resolution or initial solution. We're like, what? I can't fix this? And we'll start tinkering with it. And before long, it's almost like it becomes personal. And now we have a personal vendetta against this obstacle that we all face. And so now what happens is, and you have to be careful about this, instead of working on your problem, you should be working on your vision. Great people don't waste their energies working on their problem. They invest their energies building their vision. You say, well, Joel, that's just a semantics. No, it is a perspective shift. It's the same thing as a fighter. Imagine a boxer fighting not to lose versus one who's fighting to win. I had a friend that I grew up with. He fought Mike Tyson in the 80s. His name is Mark Young. Go on YouTube and Google him, put him up on YouTube, Mark Young versus Mike Tyson. And of course, unfortunately, Mark got knocked out within the first 2 minutes of the first round. And I saw him back in the 90s, and I said, Mark, I said, what happened? He said, Joel, when I looked into Mike's eyes, that was the first time I had ever felt any kind of fear. And when we were fighting, I was fighting not to lose rather than to win. And that's what I mean by a perspective shift. When you are working on your problem, you're fighting not to lose. You're not fighting to win. And so that outlook is going to change your outcome, because you don't have the insight to recognize a subtle distinction between working on a problem and building your vision. But that's okay, because guess what? You can begin again today to appropriate and apply and employ this perspective as you begin to build again in your journey towards greatness. See, folks, this is about learning. This is about growing on the inside. This is about having the emotional maturity to handle the weight of greatness. This is not about just getting to a place where we have great stature and great status and a lot of stuff. This is about really having become a different person. I call it having a disposition for the dimension that we want to enter. I've met people who really don't have, they really didn't have the character that I thought that came with that position. And I can say in my own life, places that I've been and things that I've been privileged to do, I did not have the character for that position and for that degree of influence that I had at that time. And I saw that by the results that I got or that I didn't get. And because I'm committed to growing, and evolving, I took those lessons and applied them to my heart to become a different person. Because it's not just about, if you want to be great, you want to be sustained in your greatness. You don't want to just get there and then, like these athletes, they make money, but they don't understand economics. Most of them don't know anything about how to read stocks and investing. Why would you not focus on something other than your craft? You don't have to be a master, but you should be articulate and conversant in it so that you can know whether or not you're getting good advice. But see, that's what happens in a society where people are one-dimensional. So what I'm talking about is having a holistic and an integrated approach to this pursuit of greatness so that when we get there, we know how to solve problems. We know how to manage problems. We know how to use problems to support rather than impede our pursuit of greatness. We understand that sometimes problems themselves become our compass. They tell us which way to go. They tell us and they guide us. They're like little rulers, like the little white lines on the road, on the traffic as we're driving. Those lines let us know how far to go. And see, when you have the perspective of greatness, you can use problems to support rather than to impede your pursuit of greatness. And that's a perspective shift. And that's what we've talked about in this today's session. Don't lose your confidence. Pay attention to your self-talk. Watch those conclusions that you're making in your interim. Be conscious of your language, not just the words you speak, although they are important, but be conscious of the conclusions that you reach based on the words that you speak. Because if you're going to change your life, you've got to change your language, which means you've got to change your logic, which are the conclusions and the equations that you assess and you assign value to, and then that value determines whether or not the thing that you once desired is possible and worth pursuing. So I want to encourage you. You're on the right track. You're in the right place. It's the right time. All you have to do is continue to commit yourself to learning the subtle mechanics and dynamics, because what I've talked about in this particular session is really the dynamics of greatness. The dynamics and the mechanics. The how-tos, the have-tos, and then when it all comes together, you get the dynamic. You get those forces and those factors that facilitate and help to foster and promote us as we learn to work with the wind. It's like the laws of aerodynamics. If we don't master those, there would be no plane crashes, because there would be no planes flying. And if you don't master aerodynamics, you'll never fly to even have a crash. So change your perspective. When you crash, it's because you were flying. There are people who never get off the ground, who never go to the airport, who never buy a ticket, who don't even believe that flight is possible. So reframe your perspective about your processes, your outcomes that you call failures. Learn to see problems as guides, as supports rather than impediments. Keep your confidence and your enthusiasm by managing your self-talk and watching your language and your logic and your conclusions. Change your outlook by changing your outcome, by getting insight, by talking to other people, by having healthy diversions from your goals and dreams, by talking to people outside your circle who can give you a fresh and an unfiltered perspective, by having a time out and a time away from your dream for a day or two, and allow yourself to dismiss that problem that is becoming an obsession in your life. And if you do that, I believe this, that it's only a matter of time for you experience the transition that brings you into the triumph that you desire to experience. And I believe that because I've experienced it in my own life. I'm not where I want to be, but I am en route. And my pace is increasing daily, and yours is too. And I want to invite you to keep continuing. Sustain your pursuit as we both make our journey towards greatness. Play this tape back. Play the first tape back. And then play this tape back. And then as you listen, ask yourself, do I approach problems the way that I've heard in this tape today? Do I shift my perspective at those times when I need to? Or do I make a conclusive and a comprehensive judgment about something that really, this time next week, won't even be important? And if you do that, then I will see you on the summit of greatness. Until next time, this has been Joel Bryant, your greatness guide. Have a greatness week, because you can.